Welcome to the FTN show.
Hey everybody, welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy, your host for the Bell Lost Souls podcast. I'm joined tonight by Chris Morgan and Ricky Addington.
I'm all in for Shrike.
Forget Shrike, we're talking about Sisters of Battle.
We will talk about the Nova Open preview. We're actually recording shortly after all that stuff has hit the internet. And speaking of Nova Open, in just a minute, I'll kick off a segment with Jim Vessel, where we go over some of his Nova predictions. We talk a little about what he's bringing and the changes that he made to his list for some recent events, and he's carrying forward into Nova.
My prediction, no less than 50 people will be extremely hungover Sunday.
Probably. It's that kind of place. I'm unfortunately not there. I was planning on getting there for at least a day, but I can't make it for some other things. And then this weekend in my hometown, I'll be at Dragon Con. So if anyone happens to hear this before they go out roaming those halls, let me know. Happy to get together, say what's up.
Yeah, this is my first year not going since I first went to Nova, and it's kind of a downer for me. But I didn't want to have to explain to my principal what the Nova Open was, my first 3 weeks at this job. So I figure I'll let that settle in first before I, start explaining my nerd obsession.
Yeah, I think
that's how I got my last two jobs, man. It's like, so you're on a podcast? I said, well, yes. Let me tell you all about it.
Guys, let's take a break. We'll come back with Jim right to the Nova stuff, and then we will talk about our reactions to the stuff that got spoiled and some stuff we know that's upcoming.
Cool.
Woo! See you all in a few minutes.
FTN is brought to you by Discount Games Inc. Please visit them at www.discountgamesinc.com. And don't forget to ask Jay about ways to save even more on your hobby projects.
Hey everybody, welcome to a community spotlight segment of Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul, your host. I'm joined today by Jim Vessel.
What is going on?
Yo man, thanks for joining me.
Of course.
We're on the eve of Nova.
Yep.
You're packing up. Are you packed?
I am packed. I tried to avoid checking any baggage, so I have my army case and then a very, very full backpack with my FLG display board and I think enough clothes to last me 5 days of drinking and heat and Warhammer, but I'm not 100% sure. So we'll see how it goes.
Roll them real tight. They fit in the backpack.
Yeah.
I don't blame you, man. Travel, because you got some legs to your journey. I mean, you mind telling us about how you're getting there?
Yeah, I got so there's no direct flights between Vancouver and DC, so I have to fly into Toronto and then Toronto to, I'm actually flying into Baltimore, which was my own fault. In my pursuit of a cheap ticket, I just searched Washington airports, and I guess it's close enough that it put me into Baltimore, and I didn't really think about it until after I'd purchased my ticket, and I just discovered literally last week that I was not on the right airport. So I had a quick panic, but then I looked it up and I realized it's just a quick, so I have a train ride from that airport down to Union Station and then an Uber to the hotel. So I don't think it'll be too bad. It's only a 27-minute train ride, which is nice, and I like trains. So maybe I think I've actually taken that train before, so I'm pretty excited. So
yeah, pretty cool. But I can see why you might want to have all your stuff with you.
Yeah, for sure. So
okay, so I wanted to bring you on to talk about predictions because have you changed your list at all going into this event? So
I'm playing the same list that I played at the Capital City Bloodbath 2 weeks ago that I won. It is slightly different than the list I played at T-Shift, which was 2 weeks before that, which I also won. But
hey man, that's why you're here. So go ahead, talk all about it.
But it's not that different. And then actually got invited to the Invitational, which is really cool. So Nova has a invitational tournament, which is the day. Traditionally, it's 5 games invitational, and traditionally, what they would do is it would be 4 games on the Thursday, and then the final would be played on the Sunday morning. And the invitational is traditionally 32 players. All the top players, Mike kind of puts together a bit of a murderer's row of players, but also some 40k celebrities, last year I think Reese played and Val was in there, Val Heffelfinger. So some of the other kind of notorious 40k celebrities, I think some of the GW guys that travel sometimes play in the invite. So I got invited to that this year, but because of the way that the Nova format has changed, it's only 16 players this year and 4 games. The reason that it's changed that way is because they grew Nova from 256 to 330, I think. And in order to do that, they had to add a 9th game to the main tournament, which means now there's 3 games on Friday, 3 games on Thursday, and 3 games on Sunday, which meant they couldn't fit that 5th invitational game on the Sunday morning, which means they had to reduce the size of the invitational to 16. So I'm in a pretty nasty little invitational bracket. We have all the kind of big names and some of the top ICC players. I think like 5 of the top 10 ITC players are in there, and then we got guys like Tony Kopak, Alex Fennell, a lot of big names in this event. So I'm playing a slightly different list for that one, though.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. So you changed it up just because of a little predictability in that field, and then how does that? I guess if you wouldn't mind telling what you're changing and maybe why, and then past that, like how do you prepare differently for a 300 person event?
Yeah, so the cool thing about Nova is like you don't actually have to have your lists in until like the morning of the event. You basically show up with your army lists. So I figured, well, what's a better opportunity to try something slightly different? Because I could basically the night before decide if I like this new version of the list a little bit better. All I've really done is, in my current list, I have 33 reinforcement points. And in the new list, all I've done is basically put Armin on a disc instead of on foot. And I specifically did that because I'm playing Ben Sherwin round 1. And he actually just won, I believe, SummerSlam or Hammer of Slam or Hammer of Wrath or something like that about 2 weeks ago. And he's playing an Eldar flyer list. So I decided having Armin on a disc so he can kind of jump up and whack some flyers at this guy would be a little bit more helpful.
A tiny bit more punching power, I guess. So.
Yeah. And the one thing to keep in mind with the invitational, it's single elimination. So there's 8 pairings. And then there's 2 brackets actually. So I'm in a bracket of 4 of 8 players, and then there's another bracket of 8 players, and we've all been ranked based on a variety of factors. So talking to Mike Brandt, who's the organizer, he mentioned that some things that they took into mind were things like performances last year. So Tony Kopak, who I believe won Nova last year, is like kind of the number 1 ranking. They took into account things like ITC ranking, overall history, a bunch of various things.
Yeah, then you get seeded into the bracket.
That's right. So the first player kind of plays the 16th, second plays the 8th, etc. Or sorry, second plays the 15th. Yeah. So I got ranked as number 4, which I think is fine because, I'm kind of new on the scene this year. I don't really have much history with this event, and I'll take my 4th. I'm not a greedy guy, which means I got to play Ben in the first round. But it also means that some of the players, like in the other bracket, I would never actually get to play until the final if I make it to the final. So that's gonna be interesting. So thankfully, Nick Nanavati, I got to dodge him. He's in the other bracket. Andrew Gagno, also a very excellent player. He's in the other bracket. So I've kind of, I don't know if I'm in a good place or not, but we'll see how it goes. And I also just found out, which I don't actually know if this is true, so I'll find it tomorrow, that apparently there's $1,000 cash prize for winning this invitational. So again, someone told me that, and I was like, really? So I had no idea that was the case, but yeah, if that happens, I mean, that's pretty cool. We'll see.
Yeah, man, and I don't even mind the list tailoring, especially since you know who you're going up against. So why not, right? He's probably doing the same thing
for sure. And so each of the players had to tell what their faction was, what factions they were bringing, and so that's all about the other person. I know that Ben is bringing Assyriani and Drukhari. There's 3 GSC players, which are all in the other bracket, which is good for me, which means I might not have to play any of them until the final. And then I have some Custodes, some Necrons, some Admech in mind, so I imagine I'm going to be facing a few of those Caladius tanks if I get there. Now, the one thing I will say, though, Paul, and this is kind of the hard part, is Nova being 9 games, like, part of me is kind of, I want to do well in this invitational because of some great players, but if I go the full 4 games, that's 4 games on the first day before even the real tournament begins. Like, that's exhausting in and of itself, so I'm kind of torn as to, like, how deep I want to go in this event in case, if I do go all the way, that's great, but then all of a sudden, I have another 9 games potentially ahead of me, so that's going to be a 13-game weekend, which is going to be really intense.
Yeah, you got to keep the eye of the tiger, man. You got to stay in it.
Yeah, so that's going to be tough, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be really fun, and I think some of it's getting streamed, but I'm not 100% sure.
Cool, I'll be looking out for it. I mean, I know it's after travel and then getting there and playing against top competitors from the basically from the jump is difficult, but it's part of the thrill also.
Yeah, and I will be very honest with everyone. I have played exactly 0 Nova missions, so it worked for me with Adepticon. I hadn't played a single Adepticon mission when we went to that event, and I somehow pulled that off. So I'm going to bank on my experience as a player and my wit, hopefully to get me through.
You get a lot of familiarity with the list, too, so that you're not really playing with any unfamiliar pieces.
That is true. So I think the biggest thing, and there's been some good articles recently about the difference within Nova and the ITC missions, and they're very subtle, but it actually does make a very big difference as far as how the game actually plays and what kind of lists do better in, say, this format versus the ITC format.
And you still feel good about your list? You think it's got all the tools necessary?
I do. I feel really good about it. I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, some of the advantages that I have through ITC aren't quite there. But I still feel like I have the resiliency and the board control to kind of fight through that stuff. You know, ultimately, I think I'll do well. You know, if I was a betting man, would I pick my style of list to win this event? Probably not. I think there's some other styles of lists that are probably a little bit more, they're better in this format. But I
do you
still
mind
feel like
running down your list? Sorry, do you mind running down what your list is?
Yeah, no problem. So I'm running fairly similar list that I have been. So I have a Demon Battalion with 60 Plague Bearers, a unit of Nurglings, a Poxbringer, and a Sloppy Bowpiper. So that's one. I have another Demon Battalion with a Contorted Epitome. And actually, I gotta ask you, I keep hearing people pronounce it Epitome. Is it Epitome or Epitome?
It's Epitome.
Yeah. Is it Epitome? Okay. Yeah. I'm like, okay, am I saying this incorrectly?
I'm pretty sure that a epitome is not a word. That doesn't mean it can't be a proper name. I'm just saying.
Okay. I heard multiple podcasts pronouncing it epitome, and I'm like, am I saying it wrong? Also, Contorted Epitome.
No, you can't not say it. Right.
Changecaster and a Corn Demon Prince with the Scullery Rags. I also have in that unit of Brimstones, 28 Pink Horrors, and 20 Bloodletters. And then I have a Supreme Command of 2,000 Sons Demon Princes and Armin on foot. I have 33 reinforcement points as well, and I brought those as some secret tech against Genestealer Cult, so I can basically summon a unit of Brimstones for 30 points, which gives me an extra layer of screen, or I can use those 33 points to split my horrors, which gives me essentially it works out to additional 9 wounds on my horrors, which is a Brimstone. So 33 points gets me 3 blue horrors and 6 Brimstone horrors. So that 33 points essentially bumps up the total wound total of my unit to about 36, which is beyond the starting size. So it gives me a few extra wounds as well.
Really anxious to see how that works out for you. I've been talking about splitting horrors for a while now. I mean, even to a larger degree than that. It sounds like you might have found kind of like that perfect balance, though.
Yeah, it's I used it to really good effect at Capital City Bloodbath about 2 weeks ago. In my game 5, I played Genestealer Cults and was able to use those 30 points to summon basically an additional line of Brimstones, which kind of helped screen out the enemy. And then in my final game, I was able to use those points to basically eat Overwatch from a Crusader, and then charge in and use the splits to actually get me a much closer charge. So it was, it's a nice little bit of tech. And to be honest, I don't really have much else to do with those 33 points. There's not really much else anywhere else to really put them. Yeah. So that's kind of where I go.
So you might as well demoralize your opponent.
Exactly.
Okay, so going into this event, there's been a controversial ruling on Genestealer Cults, and they came from below.
Yeah.
And the reason it's controversial is that it's contradictory to the published FAQ from Games Workshop. And not to say that the tournament can't publish their own rules and updates or whatever. That's how you kind of culture craft your event. But this is a big change as to what maybe people might have been expecting if they were bringing their Genestealer Cult army.
Right. So you're thinking, what are my thoughts, huh?
Yeah. I mean, how do you think? Well, I don't necessarily. You don't have to comment on what you feel about their decision, but how do you think it impacted what people were going to bring? That as far as that army goes.
Yeah, to kind of lay out exactly what the ruling was. So the ruling was made that Genestealer Cults units that were put back into Deep Strike using the I think it's called it came from below stratagem. There's essentially a stratagem that you can use at the start of the first turn for Genestealer Cults that lets you put up to 3 units back into Deep Strike. And because of the wording of that stratagem currently, it basically ignored the tactical reserves rule, which meant you could put like 20, 40, 60 acolytes into Deep Strike, aberrants, characters, all this kind of stuff. And because it ignored tactical reserves, you could bring them in on turn 4, 5, or 6, which is extremely powerful powerful because having to screen out against Gene Stealer cults for the full 6 turns is almost impossible. Knowing that they're going to be, most of their army is going to be on turn 3, that's a very manageable kind of process. But knowing that, you could have 10 aberrants come in very late game, turn 5 when all your screens are dead and just run through your army the last 2 turns, that's a very, very powerful ability. So they FAQ'd it. They made a ruling that said those units still have to come in by turn 3. And, I actually think as far as like whether I think that's a good ruling or bad ruling, I do think that, and I guess my bias will be showing, but I think that kind of ability to be able to do that with Gene Stealer cults is incredibly powerful. And it does sound like, from the rumors and the mumblings that is the intent of the rule, whether or not, the rules as written, that's what it's supposed to be. What I do think was not done well, and, obviously I know Mike is super busy and has a lot, I don't think the implementation of how they communicated that was done well. I felt like, it sounds like a lot of players are just finding out about this rule today and yesterday. And, that never feels good. However,
today being 2 days before the tournament, that's when we're doing it.
Yeah, today being 2 days before the tournament. However, I don't think from a list perspective, and this is the question that I would kind of have to the Gene Stealer cult players, which is, Gene Stealer cult I actually think is one of the best armies in this Nova format. I actually think that, like, if your entire game plan, your entire strategy for winning this event, this tournament, was based around abusing this ability to come in on turn 4s, 5s, and 6, if that's the only kind of card in your arsenal, and that's the only, thing that you have available to you, and because of that now being FAQ'd, your whole list is ruined. Well, I don't really have that much pity for you because, it was a very abusive stratagem in the first place. It was extremely powerful and to the point of being overpowered, and that they've toned it down a little bit. I personally don't think it should kind of ruin your entire army. It's unplayable. Like, you're going to have to quit the tournament, all this kind of stuff, even without that stratagem. And I've played Gene Stealer cult players that have never used that stratagem that do plenty fine. So I don't necessarily feel like it's this complete seismically altering FAQ that makes the army unplayable. They've just toned down one very specific, very overpowered stratagem to make it slightly less extreme. And so I don't actually think that it's that big of a deal in the sense of, a lot of players are complaining like, oh my God, like this is past the cutoff and like, we can't drop the event. Like if you're going to drop the event over that small change, then you probably shouldn't have gone to the event in the first place.
That's certainly, yeah, I could see that. And I actually don't think that it changes the build of the list too much. I think you're still taking some of those things and you would just use that stratagem when you thought you needed to bring it, but it's not changing the overall bulk of your list, I don't think.
Right. So I feel those Gene Stealer cult players, maybe some of them are a little bit salty about it, but
it's a huge powerful move. And if you thought you were going to be doing that in games where you're playing somebody of equal skill, equal army list, and everything else, and equal luck, it's your kind of your ace in the hole, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Look, I'll be honest with you, and in my complete selfish, centered way, 2 of the best players I know that are going, Nick Nanavati and John Lennon, both play Gene Stealer cults, and Gene Stealer cults are very good in this format, and there's a very good chance I'll play one of them. And so if, in my own way, I'm not shedding too many tears that their armies are slightly less powerful because, hey, it's going to give me a bit of an advantage.
Well, that's the way these erratas work.
You can get.
Yeah, the erratas work. When it's happening to the other guy, it's not a big deal. When it's happening to you, it's a little bit more stressful.
Right. And,
but I'm with you. I see I of course sympathize and been there.
For sure. So, whether it's fair or not, whether it's handled right or not, who's to say? But, it is what it is.
Well, it's out there now and people know they can make a choice. And since army lists aren't even due yet, big deal. I shouldn't say big deal, but you could certainly adjust if you wanted to.
Well, and there was a lot of, kind of hyperbole. One unnamed Gene Stealer cult player was saying, well, I don't have time to paint 80, more models now. I'm like, well, if that one stratagem caused you to change your list so much that you have to paint 80 more models, like what were you doing with your list? Like that seems like you've completely banked on this one tactic. You know what I mean? So, I thought that was a little hyperbolic.
Yeah, that's fair. So, okay, back on kind of what we're talking about, how do you prepare for going into a 300 plus man tournament? Like, how do you prepare to fight and battle and try to win?
Yeah, so I actually think the bigger factor in this is the length length rather than the size. So why I think the length is more important is because I've played 300 person tournaments or 200 person tournaments with 6 rounds, and it's it's really no different than preparing for like a 100-man tournament, right? Because the thing is, because of the way that the Swiss pairings work, your first 3 games are almost, unless you're unlucky and maybe get paired against, one of the top guys, in a 300-person field or 200-person field, there's probably only around, and Nova's obviously a little different. There's a very, very tough field at Nova. There's probably 12 to 15 people in this event that have a good chance of winning the event. Like, there's no favorites at a tournament with this caliber of players and this size, and that goes this long. So I think the biggest thing to understand is, you just need to play your games and hopefully don't, you gotta get a little lucky sometimes, right? Like, winning a tournament is not just about how good you are. Sometimes, matchups matter. Sometimes, last year actually I got full points my first game, and I hit Nick Nanavati in my second round, right? So, what are my odds, right? Out of 256 players, that of all the other people that had won, I would get Nick round 2. And surprise, spoiler alert, but I lost that game.
A little bit of bad luck.
So I don't think there's a ton of different preparation you do. I think the best thing you can do is look at who are the other people that are in that event that have a good chance of winning. And if you play their list, do you have a plan? So, we have some of these top players, and you can see who those players are. And if you don't have a plan to play their lists and beat their lists, then you're going to be in trouble as a top player. Now, if you're say maybe a mid-level player, mid-table player, and you have no, belief that you're going to even win, I think the key is you just go and you have fun. One of the cool things about Nova, and something that I really like, is after game 5, you actually get, the whole tournament gets redistributed into brackets. So there's 16-man brackets after game 5, which means that if you want to be in that top bracket, you got to be 5-0, right? So, you might go 3-3 or 3-2 or 2-3. And after that 5th game, you're going to play with only people with similar records for the rest of the tournament. So and then it kind of starts anew. And the goal at that point is then to win your bracket, because you can never finish worse than the lowest spot in the bracket, and you can never obviously finish higher. So, you get to kind of go in and play almost like a new tournament with people in and around your skill level, in and around your record. And that is a little bit more relaxing than ending up, accidentally, winning 3 games and then getting thrown against, some really, really tough opponents, that maybe lost a game early. So, I really like that part of the bracketing system at Nova.
Yeah, you can get you can win out in a bracket, and even if you're playing towards, you got a miserable day 1.
Yeah, and I think, it's cool that you have something to play for after that day 1.5, because you can still win your bracket, and then the bracket winners also get a cool prize.
Yep, can't wait to see how that goes. What do you think the field's going to be? I guess Army lists aren't in yet, so where do you think it's going to be weighty? You think we're going to see a lot of Chaos Space Marine type stuff? I mean, Lord Discordants everywhere. What's your over/under on number of Lord Discordants you think you're going to see? So
the one thing that's interesting about the Nova missions is that there really isn't any benefit to killing models. There is to killing individual models, but like ITC, there's that kind of whole dynamic of kill one, kill more, where you're in a rush to kill things early and often in every turn. With Nova, you don't have to do that at all. It's just total kill at the end of the game. So I kind of feel like the Lord Discordants are a very alpha strike army, and I think you could run into situations where they aren't able to go the full distance, because like in traditional ITC, an alpha strike army, the goal is to kind of accumulate enough points early so that your opponent can never come back. But in Nova, you can play a lot more conservative, way more defensively, sitting back a little bit more and letting the opponent come to you and take your time. So I do think we're going to see lots of Lord Discordants, but I think we're going to see a lot of Caladius tanks. I think we're going to see a lot of Gene Stealer cults. I think Tau actually does really well in this format because of the fact that there's no penalty for having lots of small units. And same with Gene Stealer cults. So one of the weaknesses of Gene Stealer cults in ITC is they have so many units and they die so quickly that they almost never get like kill one, kill more. They never get kill more. It's really easy to kill lots of them. Whereas in Nova, that's not really a factor, which means you're going to see lots of MSU style armies with lots of small units really taking the board, crowding the board. I think we'll see a lot of things like Dark Eldar Venom spam, which again isn't great in ITC because of things like Butcher's Bill and Kill More, but I think is going to be very powerful in the Nova scenarios because of how fast they move, because of the board control, those kinds of things.
I need you to commit. Like, what do you think is going to be the heaviest like concentration of army lists at Nova? What do you think is going to be the standout like meta breaker, or be the meta and the meta breaker?
Yeah. if I had to pick an army to win the whole thing, it would be Genestealer Cult. That would be my pick. I don't think it's going to be that numerous, but I think if I had to pick an army to do it, it'd be Genestealer Cult. I think as far as numerous, I think it will be Imperium as usual. So I think Knights, Admech, Custodes, that's what you're going to see a lot of. In the Invitational alone, there's like 5 of those players. So I can imagine that there's going to be lots of Imperium as well.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Imperium is probably a safe bet, and they'll be at worst like the terrors of the middle tables. Like I can see Imperium being a solid bracket champions from 3 and on down.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see a very heavy shooting meta. Like Nova does have the famous L's, but I would argue that because of the set tables, on average, there's actually less terrain to hide behind than a lot of ITC tables, which have enclosed ruins, which might have more ruins in the mid areas of the table. So I think you'll see a much heavier shooting meta because unless you're in the middle of the board behind one of those L's, there isn't very much other areas to hide behind.
You're referring to big L-shaped pieces of terrain that are tall and block a significant amount of line of sight going side to side on the table.
Yeah, so Nova has a cool thing about Nova is like, they're trying to make every table is identical, and it has these, they're famous. That's why everyone refers to them as Nova L's. But basically, these 2 large L-shaped line of sight blocking pieces that are kind of off center a little bit in the middle of the board. But in a lot of the boards, they're not that effective for line of sight blocking because, on a narrow table edge, you can go to either side of them and basically shoot around them. So, unlike ITC, where you might have a bit more full, ruins in deployment zones where you can hide wholesale units and stuff, Nova has a very specific, they're very, very limited places to actually hide things.
Yeah, the terrain is part of the culture of the event. I mean, it's become its kind of its own template, and I can certainly see the effort they put into that. But it does. Anything like this influences what people bring, and probably a good call on the shooting type stuff.
Yeah, and so I'm hoping that hopefully I don't play too many of those Caladius tanks because they do give my army fits. I still feel good about my list, so we'll see. This is kind of my 1-year anniversary of really getting heavy into competitive 40k. Nova was last year when I came to Nova. I actually came by myself, and I went because I was so excited about starting to play this kind of more competitive 40k. I decided, hey, this is Nova tournament. I've never heard of it. I'm going to go. I'm going to play at Nova. And sure enough, I did okay. I think I went 6-2. I lost to Nick and I lost one other game, but that was kind of like the first time that I really got like my eyes really opened to that was my first kind of super tournament, right? I'd been to a lot of local tournaments, but Nova was the first real big one that I was like, oh my God, there's this whole other world of like super majors and big event conventions. And, after that, it was like Adepticon and LVO, and I was just super hooked. So,
well, dude, man, I wish you the best and safe travels. I want to check in with you, over the course of the weekend, see how you're doing, and definitely get you back on to see what your experience of the event was.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to try to do my best to do the Chaos Gods proud, but we'll see how Mike Brandt's terrorizing tournament treats me. So,
well, I really like your list. I mean, it's got a lot of elements that I think I've been kind of looking for as far as a third or fourth army to play in this cycle. I'm looking forward to doing Marines too. So this, they caught my eye. I mean, who doesn't like Marines?
I will fully admit I bought a new Marine Codex. Whether I'm going to hold my judgment until the supplements come out, and then depending on how the fall FAQ will drop most likely a few weeks after Nova, and then we basically have chapter approved, and we're into LVO season. So I'm kind of I've heard lots of rumblings about my army getting nerfed, so maybe I would hold off if I was you until after those things drop, and then kind of reassess where everything's at. But I've heard a lot of wishful thinking. I don't know if it'll all come to pass. I remember last year everyone was saying how the Castellan was going to get nerfed and the Dark Elder were going to get nerfed, and none of that stuff happened until April. So maybe I get a stay of execution to pass LVO, but we'll see. So
so you said you have the Marine Codex. Any standout stratagems that you could build a force around in your mind?
Yeah, so I think the real winners of the Marine Codex so far, just from what I've seen, I haven't taken a super deep dive in it. I think the characters on the whole have really improved. As far as stratagems, I really like how they've baked in some of the Vigilist stratagems into the Intercessors. So I think having Intercessors as a core kind of component in your army, being able to kind of there's various stratagems that let them, be snipers or hit automatically or double tap on the move. I think that makes them very versatile. And I also think that there's quite a few stratagems and psychic powers that are are movement inhibiting that have your move. And I think a good Marine army will have multiple ways to slow you down, whether it's through stratagems or psychic powers. And I think that's going to be very, very powerful because, movement is the most important phase of the game and most important aspect of the game, whether it happens in the movement phase or in the psychic phase. Moving models is how you win games. And so I think anything that allows you to inhibit that in your opponent is going to be very, very powerful. And so I think a list built around kind of movement denial and then also, strong shooting, I think is going to be the way to go.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for your thoughts. And we'll definitely catch back up with you right after this tournament.
Sounds good, Paul.
Have a good one.
Thanks, man.
We're sponsored by Firmaterra. With their sturdy, lightweight and portable tables, you can make war anywhere. Please visit them at www.firmaterra.com.
We are back. I'm really pulling for Jim. You love talking to him about list theory and hearing his takes on things. And we'll see if his predictions pan out. He mentions that he believes that Gene Stealer Cults is going to do really well because of the Nova mission format, and I can see that. It's a lot of in-game stuff where in kill point, killing things is not always a priority in the missions. It's certainly an interesting format, and we'll see if there was some things that were specifically skewed to deal with it.
It should be good to see. The Nova format's interesting. So, I mean, with some of the Gene Stealer Cult stuff that they announced kind of last minute, I'm curious to see how the good players will adapt.
Yeah, we talk about that during the segment. So, I think the impact of that is not as extreme as people have made it out to be. But we'll see. I mean, again, this is me. I'm not a GSC player. Played against it, of course, but I think there's a lot of power in the list, especially in that format. But man, let's talk about this Nova preview. I'm gonna say, welcome to the Black Parade. Shrike, there's already, it was like 10 minutes after the reveal and, 1,000 memes probably.
Is one of them Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man 3?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah. His actual head on Shrike.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep. I've seen that one. I've also seen Winter Soldier comparisons.
Okay. No, that's spot on though. Yeah.
I like that one a little better. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I don't care. That model's still sick.
Look, I like the jump pack they got on him. I like a lot better.
The quad jump pack. Not that anyone would be surprised. I'd like something like that, but whew, yes. I like it.
Yeah, I would love to see some Reavers with that instead of a grab shoot to go with this. I would be really happy to see some sort of unit like that coming along. I think Chris and I were, fantasizing earlier, and Chris started talking dirty and said Inceptors with Thunderhammers, and that's where we need to go with this. And I think that would be a fun unit.
Well, we got
even one Thunderhammer on the Sergeant, right? And then just close combat weapons on the others. That would still be fun and interesting.
No, Chris. No. Dual Thunderhammers. Inceptors don't do anything. They're dual everything.
Listen, Ricky. This is the art of negotiation, man. This is the art of negotiation. You start hard, say all Thunderhammers, maybe dual wielding Thunderhammers, right?
Yeah.
So they got, an extra attack with their Thunderhammers, and then
they
talk you down. You're like, all right, well, I'll put a Thunderhammer here, and then just give everyone else close combat weapons. They're like, deals. Yes, I still get what I want.
I'm not negotiating, okay? I'm America versus terrorism here. I will not negotiate. I want a 3-man squad with 6 Thunderhammers.
Okay, I can look. I'm on board. You don't got to convince me.
I'm not going to complain if you win, man. You don't need to talk me down.
Yeah, it's like, who's going to say no to that?
Maybe the strike model is an indication of the next supplement we'll see. I don't know if this gives us any clue into which the order that we'll get those. We know more are coming, and we know they're one of the big chapters, so we can certainly expect to see them.
You know what, though? They better bring that Iron Hands out first. Or, if they're going to do 2 at a time, bring them out together, because we've seen that Iron Hands character ages ago, right? We saw him ages ago, and those poor Iron Hands players. Show them some love, G-Dubs. Throw that out there.
I don't know if they'd release 2 black armies right together.
You don't think? Maybe they're just, maybe they got a back stock of black paint, and they just really want to get that going.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 3 opportunities to sell Black Templar contrast. You got Iron Hands, Raven Guard, and then the Black Templars.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget, Sisters coming soon.
Yeah, so let's go down the order here. They talk about this big global campaign where every codex is going to get some new rules, and they tease that new models are coming. It says some models you will not believe. That leads me to believe that some of them I will believe.
Yeah. It's they say you won't believe it, but this could come out, and I'm gonna be like, no, that's exactly what I've been hoping for.
Well,
so.
they're killing. I mean, plastic Howling Banshees. Now, Howling Banshees are one of those units. I got some Howling Banshees painted up from at the end of 4th, maybe, and they have never seen the table. Never seen a 40k table. I've used them in Kill Team a few times. I really like how they perform in Kill Team, although I still think I slightly favor the Striking Scorpions in Kill Team.
Well, I remember Howling Banshees and Striking Scorpions I just thought those were the coolest when I was a kid. When I first started playing and I learned about the Aspect Warriors, for the Eldar, and I thought they were so cool. So I'm super excited. If this campaign is going to see hopefully some exciting things for those Aspect Warriors and just plastic Eldar in general, I'm super excited about that. I'm not going to play Craft Worlds because Lord knows I'm too busy playing Space Marines these days. But I'm very happy for Eldar players to finally get something new or to get some variety in that range.
Maybe, just maybe, this also means that we'll see a revamp of like Jane Czar and a Phoenix Lord or two.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I mean, those models hold up. I think they're still absolutely gorgeous models.
Yeah,
but
I still get excited to see an Avatar. When you see an Avatar on the table, it's still fun to see those.
They are 25, 30 years old types. I mean, probably longer, probably more than 30 at this point.
I mean, they're older than most of the players these days, so that's scary.
One of the first models that I was ever just like super jazzed about that I painted was a Jane Czar model. I painted the Avatar Kane, Dante, and Jane Czar all in one day. I think I stayed up 20 hours, watched probably 9 hours of wrestling, and painted. This is how long ago it was.
It was like WWF era, wasn't it?
WCW.
There you go.
I mean, I'm talking about back. This is how long ago it was, where that was wrestling was like 9-hour block on TV or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, a long time ago, and I painted those 3 models all in one day and ended up being very, very happy with them. And I still have use that Jane Czar. Whenever Jane Czar is used, that's the model that I use. I've updated to paint a little bit along the way as I've got better, but still, the model was crafted well enough to where my mediocre paint skills applied small parts around the model, held up. Mm-hmm. Now back then, I'm a lot better now. I'm not trying to soft sell the painting. But anyways, that. And then Dante, in the Avatar, just super pleased. If I play with the Avatar, I still play with the one from that time when I painted it. Got a blend on the sword. It's got that cool fire blend on the sword.
Yeah, that was well out of my skill set back in the 90s.
Dude, it was like me catching lightning in a bottle. They're the best models, probably in that decade that I pained.
You just blacked out and came to, and they were painted.
I was fueled by the Hulk Hogan or whatever.
The Hulkamania got you.
It got me in there. But anyway, I would love to see a reboot of those on the scale they are now with some, compelling rules. But we're wish list. I'm not trying to wish list. I just, when I see, I don't think you can think of the Aspect Warriors without thinking about the Phoenix Lords. So when you see this, maybe it's a tale of something like that to come. That Strike model I think it's cool. I think the head, they mentioned that there's a beaky helmet for it also. And they say it's their first Primaris beaky helmet.
Yeah, it's hanging on his belt.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's the option.
Maglock to his side.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's the option to put it on his head or put it there.
Has to be. You can put his other head on his belt, I think, and then
I'll probably forego that.
It's a White Scar Grizzly trophy or his head.
Yeah, whichever way you want to go. I would love to see that helmet on the model. So I'm hoping that's an option. I mean, Gilliman had the option. I think, a lot of the characters now have that option. So I'm hoping he gets it too.
Well, I like how they've got him in a pretty much a Korax pose from the 30K.
Even his gun looks a lot like Korax's gun from the Primarch model.
That has to be Korax's gun, right?
I mean, you would think.
I don't know.
Those retractable lightning claws.
Does he?
Cool.
Does he have a pistol now, or is he just 2 lightning claws? Or I should say in his older rules.
Shrike? I thought he was just 2 lightning claws,
I
wasn't
thought he was just 2 lightning claws.
I could be wrong. I've not looked at his rules. And
you notice that his boots have claws too?
he? Yeah.
that's nice. He's got those, those pistons from the Inceptors. He's got those. There's claws attached to them.
Well, the suppressors have them as well, and he actually, his suit is closer to suppressors, right? Because he's basically got, it's the same setup as the suppressors, Phobos armor. So, he's not wearing Inceptor. He's obviously not wearing Gravis.
Think about the Phobos armor, Ricky, because what if he's got like that Omni Scrambler, so he can come down if he doesn't get. I mean, look, I don't want to speculate.
He's clearly in Phobos armor with lightning claws. I mean, that's going to be a thing. And I would look at the suppressors and expect it to be something along those lines, because he's got the jump packs just like the suppressors do. To me, he'll have the fly keyword. He'll have lightning claws, and
I don't see an Omni Scrambler on him. But who knows? With that backpack's got a lot of
it's a big
stuff
backpack
sticking off of it.
I mean, it looks like it's got grenade launchers or something up there. So, hopefully, maybe can't be. Maybe he'll get something for can't be overwatched when he charges. Something like that would be cool.
That'd be sweet.
It makes me mad. I'm not a Raven Guard player.
I think you're gonna have that feeling every time there's a Marine release.
I know. That's the worst part. Is it's like the Ultramarines. They came out with their book, and I'm like, dang, this looks good. This looks good. This looks good. And then we started looking at the White Scars, and it's like, I could build an entirely different army and enjoy that. And then, the Iron Hands, it's going to come out, and it's going to be, I feel like just from seeing the Ultramarines and the White Scars and the core Space Marines book, I feel like you could build so many armies that would look nothing alike and all be very competitive, very thematic. So if Shrike can come in and do that with a Raven Guard too, all the better.
I'm secretly convinced that the Iron Hands are going to be the Space Marines that are not only very killy, but also won't die like Space Marines, at least not as quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, their vehicles, just even the fact that their vehicles will benefit from their ignore wounds roll.
Just by playing them out of Codex Space Marines, they're tough as nails now, right? And so I can't even imagine what they're going to get with their Codex to make, because they're going to be even tougher, I imagine, or we're going to see stuff repairing them or something. I hope so. I think it's going to be. I
don't want to get too far into speculation, but it's hard not to though. When you see all these previews, I'm with you guys right there. It is. I just did it a few minutes ago, but it's difficult to not want to fantasize and daydream about this stuff. We got some previews for what appear to be like a hyper Sigmarized set of Tomb Kings.
That came out of nowhere to me. I was looking at them.
A lot of the Tomb King stuff officially got sunset not that long ago. I mean, it was. Yeah. I mean, a matter of weeks. I feel like it was weeks ago. And these are kind of beefy looking skeletons. I mean, you got some that look, like big beef warrior type skeletons. You got some that look like General Grievous, which I'm not saying that's bad, but they do. I mean, forearms, swords, bones.
If you charge across the table with those and don't yell Kenobi, I don't want to be your friend.
Yeah. Kenobi.
Somebody put lightsabers on those, Paul. Somebody will put lightsabers on those.
Oh, somebody already has. I've already seen a lightsaber meme.
Oh, sweet. Okay, well, there you go. That didn't take long.
I already saw it. Yeah, no, I am all about those guys. I was telling Paul in the pre-show, it's just like, I'm not into the zombie aesthetic when it comes to undead, but so far as like evil may not be the right term for it, but it also may be the exactly right term for it. I like undead in general, but skeletons are kind of my thing so far as undead go. I like armies of skeletons, and maybe I watched too much Army of Darkness growing up. But when I saw these, I was instantly like, yep, that's the one. That's the one for me. I want that one.
I was not a super fan when they split the undead. We used to call it the wet and the dry undead.
It's great.
Fair. That's fair.
I mean, this is back old time,
Yeah.
Warhammer Fantasy terminology, and I wasn't, super crazy. I know I might be in the minority. I know a lot of people really liked Tomb King, or at least we like the aesthetic of the Tomb Kings and the lore and whatever. But I didn't. It wasn't my jam. I'm more of a vampire type guy.
Yeah. Well, it didn't hurt that Tomb Kings were insanely powerful.
That helps.
When the first General's Handbook came out, that they were just bonkers. So that helped.
But this seems like a good balance between a aesthetic and a different feeling than like even the Night Hunt or the Flesh Eater Courts and Legacy Vampire type stuff. This seems like it's its own thing and has its own look to it and whatever. I'm digging it. It looks like a big name character who I'm not familiar with the character, but he looks kind of like big, like Xerxes from 300.
That's kind of the vibe I got.
He seems pretty swole.
Well, look at the dude in the model. There's a dude holding a banner, which I would imagine is a normal like 32 millimeter size, and there's like a medium-sized guy, and then there's this giant name dude.
Yeah. Well, we all know how Paul likes models that have other models on it. This one seems to have about 6 or 7.
It's a lot of paint that has to happen.
No, I mean the one guy next to him looks pretty intimidating on his own. Like you talked about like Death Knights. Yeah, it's like a samurai Death Knight. It scratches all of the right itches for me.
That's right up your alley, Chris.
Like
I saw that and I was like,
whew.
Is there like a model on the back of that thing? Oh, there's so many models to paint on this model.
Man, I knew that would trigger Paul somehow.
Warhammer Hero nominations are opening up November 28th.
This is my year, guys. This is my year.
Sooner or later, right? I guess.
I mean, they got to run out of people eventually, right?
Well, there's always people doing good works out there. A lot of people engage in the community, and they only celebrate a few a year, and it's really cool they're continuing to do that and put a focus on that kind of engagement, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of the coolest things they've ever come out with.
And now we get to something that's really going to set some folks off, and that is basically the death knell of index entries in 40k.
I am not happy.
Well, I mean, it's only a matter of time, right?
I have literally 7 sanguinary priests with jump packs.
Do what the article says. Use them in 30k.
Well, I already do that, but that's not the point.
That is the point. That's part of the point. It's like there's, I got VHS tapes and nowhere to play them.
That's your own fault for not keeping your VHS player in a box somewhere. That's poor preparation on your part, Paul.
Sooner or later, the company that made Sony stops supporting VHS, and they move on to DVD and then Blu-ray. I mean, I'm not saying it's a different type of association. I know that. Like, there are models that I've loved on and, spent tons of time putting together, and I want to be able to play with them, and I get it. But there's some models that I have that I'm never going to use from anymore. And I'm also kind of at peace with that because I've gotten all the joy out of using them up until this point.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way, Paul. I can't say that I share in your joy in that respect. I mean, I already pretty much had to put away the Terminator Sanguinary Priest I had back from 5th edition. That one, I was less sad about, but it was still a thing. It was like, I spent time on that. I built that. That was an investment. I mean, a Terminator nowadays costs like, what, $40? It's a character, something like that, $30, $40. But, there are certain units that are just iconic to an army. That to say that you cannot bring that in match play kind of sucks. Especially
they're not
when
iconic to the
still
army.
Have utility.
Yeah, they're not iconic to the army if they don't exist in the Codex anymore. As a counterpoint,
well,
I don't want to make it seem like
I would argue that the reason that it doesn't exist in the Codex does not have anything to do with how iconic a unit is in an army. It has to do with what's produced. Now, here's the thing, right? Because we have jump pack librarians are a thing that you can take. Jump pack Space Marine librarian models. There is no boxed model for a jump pack librarian that is sold by GW, but it's still in the book. It's an arbitrary thing, and that's why it bothers me, is it just seems super arbitrary. It's something that's very easily converted that now you can no longer do. And it's something that ever since, Angels of Death back in 2nd edition, I mean, Paul, you had a double Lightning Claw Sanguinary Priest with a jump pack that you played through 3rd edition and all that. Yeah. And what can you do with it now? Put him on a shelf to collect dust? I mean, you could always. I take that back. You could always play narrative play with him, Paul. I know you love that.
Now he's a 30k sergeant.
No. Well, I am still glad that I play 30k and that I have that option to convert that over long as I have the proper mark of armor, which
I don't want to be
thankfully
too trivial with it, too. I know that not everybody has the 30K fallback plan or even option, so I don't want to seem unsympathetic to folks in that situation. We
like
know
orc players?
this game is, well, I mean, think about war bosses in Mega Armor. I mean, like, that's something that people have, gone. I've seen some brilliant conversions for that, and it's really sad to see those things go. So, I mean, but we have a kind of a cyclical nature of the game, and as additions changes and stuff, I mean, you can't use your Space Marine with a shuriken catapult either. And I mean, really, those exist.
Mm-hmm.
You can't.
I guess that's one more thing that you can use at 30K.
There's no Guardian. There's no Eldar Guardian with a harp in the game.
I think some of those are good decisions.
It's like,
stylistically speaking, I think that a sanguinary priest or a mega armor war boss still fit a little bit better into what 40K has become than the rogue trader Marines that kind of look like spy versus spy.
Yeah, I mean, it is a downer, right? When you're losing tools out of your toolbox, I get that, and especially.
I mean, you just enjoy playing with it, and now you have a lot less opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I mean, if that's your favorite model, mm-hmm. You spend all this time working on it, and it's your favorite model, and it does work for you on the table. You love the way it looks, and now all of a sudden, hey, we're recommending you don't take these to tournaments anymore. That's a downer.
Let's go even one step beyond that. You built that entire orc army because you thought Orc War Boss and Mega Armor was cool.
Yeah. I mean, I built a Harlequin army because of the solitaire. You tell me I can't take a solitaire?
You're not in any danger of not being able to take
I know. But, if you told me that I couldn't take a solitaire, I would be livid, right? Because I love that model. I built a whole army because I wanted to push that model around the table. So if I couldn't take my War Boss and Mega Armor,
right?
Yeah, it sucks.
It does. So, I mean, I understand. I don't want to. I guess, but I'm playing the little bit of the devil's advocate. I'm getting in the habit of doing that. I apologize, but
devil has plenty of advocates, Paul.
That's kind of the nature of the beast since time began with this game.
Yeah, but I think that's just in the past couple of years, especially with Space Marines specifically, right? Because we have gotten these insanely dynamically posed models right out of the box. And they look amazing. But what we've lost to get that, is that modularity and that ease of customization and kit bashing that was so fun with the Space Marine range. And, that still kind of bums me out that it's not as easy to kind of kit bash kits together like we used to be able to. So the hobby or the game is changing in that way, and this is just another way. I'm not going to what are you going to do? I'm not going to throw my models in the garbage and walk away from the game. But it's just it's a downer when that sort of stuff happens. But we're also getting really new and really cool things as well. So they giveth and they taketh away.
Well, let me. So it doesn't go unsaid. In previous versions of this kind of squatting, that's probably the best way to describe it. Is that in most instances, whatever it is, the model that you wanted to use just wasn't as good or as efficient or as competitive anymore. And in this instance, they're being removed as an option, and that is a much bigger blow. And I don't want to sound ignorant of the fact that is a business decision for the company, is what what we suspect. It's probably a combination of things, but that has some element to it.
Yeah, it's just it's as a Marine player, it just feels wonky that we have so few options as far as characters that can really get around the table. You know what I'm saying? Other than the Phobos captain and lieutenant, what do we really have anymore? Or what do we have in the Primaris range that can get around without getting attacked?
Let's look at Shrike here. I mean,
he's
got a sweet jump pack. And that that's going to start opening the doors.
Shrike.
That's Shrike. That's great. Yeah. Good for Shrike, and I'm happy for Shrike, and I'm over the moon for you Ravengard players. Super pumped.
I'm saying maybe it opens the doors.
Ricky's just raving about it.
Oh, there it is. That's why we record. Great job, actually. I love that one.
Liz stepped into that one. So, it opens. I think it lets us think that maybe that stuff is coming down the way, but who knows? We can't. I don't want to speculate too much. I just know that there are some key elements to people's armies that are going to get marginalized, and that they have left it open for tournament organizers to kind of use some discretion there. But I feel like this is going to be kind of that death nail, that the thing, the broom that's sweeping the index off the stage.
Yeah, I mean, I would be shocked if TOs allowed Legends models, after the first couple of months, but you never know. I mean, we've seen them offer up optional rules before, and people just not jump on that at all, or include them wholeheartedly. So, we'll see. But
this weekend, I would definitely pour a little out for those war bosses.
Yeah,
and Sanguinary Priest with jump packs.
But Blood Angels needed that. Your Blood Angels are really overpowered right now, so it's good that they pull you guys back a little, right?
No. Finally ratcheted down a peg.
Yep. Well, they can't make it too easy for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I thought that they were definitely doing that already.
Big news, and they put this towards the end of the article, I guess, to bring people's spirits back up, is that the Sisters of Battle are going to get an army set in November.
No big deal, right? Oh my gosh.
It looks like a pretty big deal.
It's just a huge deal.
Yeah.
That's honestly sooner than I thought, too. Like, I thought they were going to keep us on the hype train here for a lot longer, but November that's right around the corner, man.
Yeah, it'll be here before we know it.
My wife now has to start playing 40k. I think because we made a deal. I would go hiking and camping with her more, but she had to start playing 40k, and I think she thought she was going to do something smart, and she picked Sisters of Battle because she knew I would wait until Plastic came out, because who in their right mind starts a metal Sisters army, right? And I don't think she thought that they would be coming out this soon. So luckily, November's her birthday.
Joke's on her.
Yeah. So, and doubly so, because now her birthday present is going to be Sisters of Battle. So
I bet she's going to be super happy about that.
Real.
Yeah. Are you going to put that in with like the new whisk that you buy her?
That and an iron, maybe a new vacuum cleaner.
No. She's gonna name her first penitent engine Ricky.
That's fair. I'll take that.
You do kind of favor the dude on there.
I don't know. He's a little skinnier than I am, so I haven't seen my ribs in years.
That Canonist model that they said they gave away to everyone at the preview. So, man, I'm so sorry I missed it for sure. But I mean, it looks amazing all painted up and stuff. I mean, they've done a bang. A lot of the paint jobs you see on the miniatures on the website look like attainable.
Yeah.
These are back up to that unobtainium status.
Yep.
Nice reference there.
What are the jetpacks? Are they the Seraphim? They're the Seraphim, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they're the Seraphim.
Those things look amazing. So
yeah, they look good.
I don't even care. I don't even care if they're good. Wifey's getting a couple of those.
Yeah, that's just
for
some
her
sweet
birthday.
poses. I mean, just real dynamic, and it captures. I think what people are gonna like in a representative of a fighting force.
Yeah,
I'm digging it. Let's take a break, and we'll come back and talk a little bit about some armulus design and maybe effective ways to help your buddies get better armulus.
Cool.
Right on.
FTN is also on Facebook. Please like us at www.facebook.com/Forge the Narrative.
Hey everybody, we are back. You heard a word from our sponsors, and Fermentera has a new thing that they're rolling out. If it's ready for like public view and consumption, I will put that link in the show notes, but please check them out. They've got a game organizer that they're having as a companion product to their portable gaming tables. And I've been chatting with Joe, one of the owners of Fermentera. He is a real cool guy. He's going to be at Nova this weekend, roaming around, checking out games. If you do see him, I don't know if they got a booth there, but please check them out. Always a pleasure to interact with, and happy to continue to support them as they support us. So check them out. That's how this train keeps moving. So I was building Space Marine Army List, sending them out to folks, and different people I know that either Space Marine players or buddies or people that I know I'm going to have to paint some stuff for. I'm like, yo, I wouldn't mind painting this because I think it's good. You got to kind of make it a little fun for yourself that way. And then there is some folks that I sent it to, and the feedback I got was that list is dumb.
The problem with that is when you get that, sometimes you just want to do it just to prove them wrong. I think that's the scary part is like, no, am I right? And I'm going to show them all, or should I listen to them and not embarrass myself?
Look, these are some of our friends that are like family. So that's just sometimes what you say to people, like, oh, that's great. Well, I'm sorry, you're dumb and your face is dumb, So I get it. But, I was actually trying to have like get the ball rolling on a conversation to see about, get some feedback from different types. I think you need kind of a village sometimes when you're trying to figure out what the best thing is. Yeah,
but I mean, because we put blinders on to a lot of things because we always have these favorite units and stuff that are our mainstays, and so a lot of times you will just gravitate towards a certain thing every time and not even consider another unit because you've just never looked at it this way or something like that. So it's always good to have somebody else look at your list just for that alone, just to kind of help take the blinders off of what you're doing.
And I don't know, I think confirmation bias is maybe one of the terms to where you already think something is the bee's knees. Mm-hmm. And so you can't accept anything other than that. And I think, getting different points of view. Anyway, this is a very innocent conversation that I'm using as a talking point. So. But I think it's a good thing to do and a good thing to explore. So the list that I proposed in its original form was this Ultramarines list, Calgar, a chaplain with a jump pack, 3 intercessor squads, 3 scout squads in 2 pods. I don't think I'd put all the scouts in the pods all the time, but my feeling on pods, a couple pods in there.
There was no way you were getting away with no pods in your list right now. Yeah.
A 4-man unit of aggressors, and I'm on the fence with the aggressors. By the way, I
should be.
Well, with but see, it's about how it fits in the list. Like, what is it? Just a collection of junk I've got here, or whatever.
Right.
Kronos and a Vindicator Destroyer.
Good man.
But see, there's part of the sending this out to folks is like, well, what about Kronos and a 4 last cannon Predator for 175 points? I don't even know that it's 175 points, but it's a cheaper option, and I don't know if it's good or not.
No,
but that was some of the feedback. Tigerius, 2 Eliminator squads, 3 Invictor warsuits, and a squad of intercessors. That is about 2,000 points, give or take a few options, with 2 battalions giving 15 command points with Calgar. That was the first rough draft list.
I mean, you're going to have plenty of CP, and that's one thing that Marine armies usually struggle with. So having 15 CP in a Marine army, that's pretty okay. What are you planning on putting on the scouts? Just bolter scouts?
I was planning on close combat scouts.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Because if they come down in the pods, then you get you got your chaplain there, you give everybody +2. So really, I want to push a lot of things up in people's faces really early in the first 2 turns of the game. Have almost like 2 waves of in-your-face threats you have to deal with. And maybe take some pressure off the aggressors to get them up the field a little bit. But see, the aggressors, I think they might not fit in this piece, and they're a decent chunk of points for even just 4 of them.
Yeah, but if your aggressors are painted blue, they're fantastic now because they always count as stationary as long as they don't advance, right? They're counted as stationary, so they're shooting double. That means they're just frightening with Auspex scan. They're shooting double even when they move. They're so good for the Ultramarines. I mean, I love them, even if I'm not using them as aggressors so much as defensors. A unit of aggressors,
distractors,
just anything, whatever you want to use them for, they're going to do a good job. But if you put a 3-man squad of aggressors on an objective, like hide it out of line of sight from their big shooting, and just dare them to deep strike something in near them, they're really people don't think about it all the time, but a 3-man squad of aggressors is really good sitting on a backfield objective because those units that typically will get back there in someone's backfield don't do well with that many bolter shots going into them.
We've seen this a lot. It's really easy to build a bad Marine list. So feedback, again, it's all very important. All adds into you get a good rough draft. Try not to talk yourself out of anything that unless it's just by the numbers, just doesn't make any sense. And then so back and forth after we exchange insults with each other for about an hour in text.
It's mandatory. Yeah, you have to do that.
I then ask the question, okay, what stratagems would you build around? Like, okay, cool. If you legitimately don't like the list or how the list is composed, then, maybe let's go back to the core and let's discuss what stratagems that you think would be fundamental to, or not necessarily fundamental, that you could build a list around.
Right.
And, that leads me to a lot of the stuff with the intercessors.
Yeah, 100%.
The intercessors have some amazing strategies. So then I'm thinking, like, man, why am I only taking 15 of them? Why don't I have 30 of them in a list and 3 squads of 10 that you could then combat squad if you wanted to or needed to, and really, or keep them all together and get some extra value out of those 1-2 CP stratagems.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? Is it Bolt Storm and Rapid Fire? Are those the two that they basically came over to the Marine Codex out of Vigilus?
Yeah, yep, that's it. Yep.
In Vigilus, they're 1 CP apiece. In here, they're 2 CP each, but you don't have to pay 1 for the detachment and then 1 for making all of your squads. So, I guess you can still use the Vigilus ones, right? So, I mean, I guess there's if you have the CP, you're probably a little more efficient to go that way instead of paying 2 per here. But either way you do it, I think they're really good stratagems if you have those 10-man squads. But I think for 2 CP, you're going to want 10-man squads. And then if you're running a 10-man squad of intercessors, you almost want the repulsor to keep them safe until they do.
So hot on that repulsor. Can't you just keep
I can't support this course of action, Ricky.
Look, Ultramarines repulsors, guys, they put out a ton of shots. They can charge. They can fall back, and I mean, there's a lot of good stuff that repulsors.
You don't have to bring as much in your carrying case.
Yeah, I mean, it's what else would you need? Just take 4 repulsors and be done with it. But don't do that. I'm going to do that, but that's because I'm
rule of 3.
Oh well, there's repulsor executioners and they're dedicated transports, so I can take as many as I want. But repulsors are actually, people crap on a repulsor, but have you played against repulsors a lot? A lot of people
we've given a lot of airtime to it. I mean, so there's
a toughness 8. It's a toughness 8 vehicle, right? And then don't forget, if you've got Tigurius there and you're making it -1 to be hit, that thing is going to sit on the table a long time.
That's what came out in part of our discussion. Is like, no, I don't know if you're considering the things that I've considered when I put this list together. Like Tigurius doing his thing, like some of the psychic powers, like the chaplain being able to jump up and do his aura on the Invictors and stuff like that. I wasn't sure it was being considered. So when you engage on that in this, I think that the proper way, or maybe one of the better ways to if you don't understand why someone's taking this, is ask them, why were you taking that? This is what we do when people send in stuff to the FTN page or through the contact page on the website or whatever. It's like, are you making a model decision because that's what you have, or because that's what you want to play with, or do you have some other kind of combo in mind that maybe I'm not seeing from the initial read of the list?
Yeah, and that's super important because I'm not going to look at the same units the same way you look at the same units, because not everybody plays exactly the same. So I've got a buddy who he builds Marine lists so completely different than I do because we have different play styles, and he come at me the other day with a list that I think had 5 sniper scouts in it, and I asked, I said, what are you doing here with, I said, are you sure you want sniper scouts? He said, yeah. And then he starts explaining to me because he ends up playing against Chaos a lot. And then he says, and then he starts showing me in the list. The list has Tellian in there, and the list has a chaplain with the +1 to wound rolls. And so if you think about what, 5 squads of sniper scouts will do to a Chaos list, which is very character driven, when 5+ causes mortal wounds, and Tellian's letting one of them hit on the whole squad, hit on 2+, and then all of a sudden, his plan, you start to see what his plan is and how he plans on using them, whereas I would never have even considered that. Here, he's coming up with this just assassination list that could shut down any character heavy army in the game.
Yeah, I think hearing the direction that the architect of the list is wanting to go with it, because then you can kind of talk through what that vision is. Like, that unit is not, if we actually sit down and did the math, is not as good at completing X task as maybe you assume. There's a unit that does it slightly better. Are you concerned about that? That's the kind of thing. And then it fits in like, oh man, that's a heavy slot instead of a fast attack slot. So maybe I could change my detachments around or something. I mean, there's that kind of dialogue, I think gets you better results than just going into it with, I don't like your HQ there. I don't like your heavy support. Okay, cool. What would you change? Or, are you curious about why I chose that in the first place?
Yeah. And I think on the flip side of that is you need to have that conversation and everything. But the big thing is, you as the person building the list needs to be receptive to criticism. And if you don't want it, if you don't want advice or you don't want a critique of your list, then maybe just don't show it to people. You know what I'm saying? But like,
I've been guilty of this. Sometimes I just want to show off. Look at this beautiful list.
Oh yeah. But
this masterpiece.
Yeah, especially
irreproachable.
Yeah. Guess what? Somebody will offer.
I'm being slightly tongue in cheek. I have presented lists like that.
Yeah.
Without knowing I felt that way, but that's as soon as the first comment came in, I was immediately hackles up defensive.
Yeah. Well, I do it weekly, right? Because I'll come up with a list, and then you're like, everybody, it's you have done it to me. Like, well, why don't you do this, and this? And it usually boils down to, well, I don't want to. I've got this super fluffy list that I just love the idea of, but I recognize that is, the way I like to build lists, right?
Okay.
But and that's fine. But I think the big thing is if you do want to if you want those conversations and you want help with a list, you can't be prideful about your list. You have to be receptive to other people's thoughts, and you need to have those conversations and get the feedback, because your buddy may be playing on tables higher than you normally play on and can give you really good feedback about what kind of lists you may not normally see, right? Because
he could know the lay of the land. He could know that, at the tournament you're planning on going to, it's a 20-man tournament, and 20% of that tournament is AdMech players, and they all take the
right, or just the format. Yeah, the format is huge. I am the world's worst about looking at the format and the missions and building a list that works in a format. And I've got friends who are very good at that and can just rip my list apart on the basis of it's not good in this format.
Yeah,
and here's
they're scoring more points than you. They position
right,
themselves to take advantage of the missions better than you.
Yeah, but and I think it also should be said, take all the advice you can get, but at the end of the day, the decision's yours, and you still need to walk away from the game feeling like it was your army, it was your decisions and your choice. So, take the advice, agree or disagree, make your changes, but don't let people bully you into playing something you don't want to play.
That's fair too, but I think that you should take advantage of the group think. So, we just talked about the speed in which memes were created off of the back of this reveal. Same thing happens with army lists and combos.
Mm-hmm. It's the internet is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, but what is it? The murder stick chaplain? The way to load him up to strength 9 with 700 attacks or whatever. That was cracked immediately. That's the kind of stuff that look out there. Don't go into it with kind of your blinders on. Or if depends on what you want. Like to your point, what you want to get out of the whatever you're building the list for.
Right. Yeah. I almost always build to a theme. Rarely is my theme winning. My theme is usually just. I want to do some tanks, or I want to do all Raven Wingers, something like that. So that I'm always putting myself in a bit of a corner that I work in, right? But that's just the way I do it. But that's not everybody. But definitely take advantage of the group mentality, like you said. And I think that's one of my favorite things about ATC is when you go to ATC and the whole team is working together on each of the lists. And I think it's important that everybody has their say in those lists, because you win as a team and lose as a team, and you don't want to be there saying, "Man, his list was garbage." It was like, "Well, you're on his team. You should have worked with it." And that's one of my favorite things. Is like like when you and I have been on a team, we've all like looked at the list and said, okay, this is, we all agree this is what we got, and this is what we think is the best in each of these codex. That this is the best list we're going to make. And so when the list doesn't perform, it's a bummer, but at least you're all on the same sheet of music, so I
like that. I love the team events too. And that is a good exercise in like communal list building. And not you don't have to build everything by committee. I'm just saying that being receptive to the feedback and having that effective exchange of information between people, I think you'll get better lists and you'll have more fun doing it.
And you'll learn. It's
you
one
might
of those
save
things.
some
It's
money.
just like,
You might not buy a unit you didn't need to buy.
yeah. And at the end of the day, it's just like, anybody else. It's like, talking sports about, this player and this player and this, and, it's kind of that same thing as when you can't play, you can always talk about units or talk about lists, and you just learn about the hobby and learn about the game just by sitting down and talking about stuff and considering units you haven't done before. I mean, I've learned stuff just over talking about lists and stuff. Learn new ideas and stuff, and I think that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, this is we get some grief in the comments occasionally because it seems like we're advocating that people just buy the models or whatever. It's not really the case. Never get anything that you don't want to get and you don't want to spend time painting and putting together and that kind of stuff. Never that. But we often get asked, how can I make X unit that's not traditionally known as competitive or doesn't have a place, in the top 10 list or whatever? How can we play with that? And that's something I try to work into a conversation. But if it's like, don't feel obligated to follow along with your wallet, just follow along with your ears. And then part of the discussion that we have may get you to think about some stuff that you weren't considering before and maybe get a better list for yourself down the road.
Yeah, I mean, it's just anytime there's a change or anything, models, new units get better, or your old units get worse. This stuff is always changing, so I'm never a big fan of saying just go out and buy this, and this. Buy the models you love, buy the units you love, and paint them up, because there's nothing worse than.
Well, you gotta have a goal, right? I mean,
yeah.
Like with this list I was just talking about, I wanted it to be a competitive Ultramarines list, because I mean, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna build it, I'm gonna paint it, I'm gonna give it to my buddy to take to tournaments. I may play it every now and then, depending on how good it ends up being. So I wanted it, and it's brand, and the list is brand new, so I want to put it out there to the networks and communities that I'm in to elicit that feedback, to see what they think about stuff I may not have considered yet. And I think it's a beautiful time that we live in, where we are so connected that we can do that. So take advantage of it, and then do it in a way that does solicit the right type of feedback. That's the takeaway.
I mean, there's a reason we do peer review. It works in academia and it works in Warhammer
40k list. That's our show for tonight. I think we probably went a little bit over our time, so I appreciate everybody sticking with us.
I've got Monster in the fridge. I'll be fine tomorrow.
Well, I mean, unlike Ricky, Psychic Awakening went back to sleep a little bit, so stay tuned for more on that, I'm sure.
Excited about whatever that campaign is, and then, new Eldar rules.
Yeah, Plastic Aspect Warriors, Paul.
It's been a long time.
Ending.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
All right, well, y'all have a good rest of y'all's night, and we will chat next week.
Sweet.
Right on.
Nobody puts baby in the corner.